Clause 30 of PAM contract is about the certificates and payment. The certificate here refers to the document issued by the architect related to the amount to be paid by the employer to the contractor. This section is all about the payment, the process, as well as the documentations related to the payment. This section is rather long. There are 17 clauses in total. For full statements, you may refer to the PAM contract 2018. Now let us look into it one by one. First, we talk about the payment applications and issuance of the architect's certificate. You know that for the work done by the contractor shall be entitled for the payment. In order to receive the payment, the contractor will need to submit a payment applications, and this normally done at the interim claim interval, which is clearly stated in the appendix, as stated here. This interim claim interval is typically 1 month. Now, while submitting for the payment applications, the contractor will need to provide complete details and the particulars. This serves as the evidence for the work that has been done by the contractor. Then, the architect and the quantity surveyor will need to ascertain the amount to be included in the interim certificate. This interim certificate should be issued by the architect, stating the amount which has been ascertained, so that the employer can pay the contractor accordingly. The quantity surveyor will need to provide payment valuations in order to ascertain the amount to be paid to the contractor. Now, within 21 days from the date of receiving the contractor's applications, the architect will need to issue an interim certificate to the employer, send a copy to the contractor regarding the amount to be paid to the contractor. This make known to the employer regarding the amount to be paid, which at the same time notify the contractor regarding the entitlement for the payment. And then, within the period of honoring certificate, the employer will need to pay to the contractor. This period of honoring certificate is also specified in the appendix, as indicated here. The period of honoring certificate is typically 21 days from the date of the certificate issued by the architect. So, if you count the durations, as the contractor submit the applications to the architect, within 21 days, the architect will need to ascertain the amount and issue an interim certificate. And then, within the period of honoring certificate, which is another 21 days, the employer will need to pay to the contractor. The maximum durations from the submissions of applications by the contractor until receiving the payment, it shall be equals to 21 days plus 21 days, 42 days. But you know that the architect can issue the certificate earlier, and the employer may also pay the contractor earlier. PAM contract only specified the maximum durations to be performed by the relevant parties. Now, if the contractor failed to submit a payment applications, it is deemed that the contractor waived his contractual entitlement. That means the contractor decided to do for free for the employer. It is also stated that the architect may or may not issue an interim certificate. If the architect decided to issue the interim certificate, that means the employer will need to pay within the period of honoring certificate, even though the contractor do not submit any payment applications. The contractor should receive the payment as per the amount of work being done. However, if the architect do not issue an interim certificate, the contractor cannot blame the architect, as he himself do not submit any application. It is deemed that the contractor waived his own contractual entitlement by the architect. In order to ensure payment to the contractor, it is strongly encouraged that the contractor submit the payment applications. Next, after the issuance of the certificate of practical completions, theoretically the work has already been completed. On such basis, there shall not be any interim certificate. However, if there are further amounts that are ascertained by the architect and quantity surveyor, interim certificate shall be issued. That means if there is no further amount, there shall not be any interim certificate after the certificate of practical completions. So let us digest the information here. You know that the payments are made after the contractors have completed the work. The contractor cannot be paid for the work that he has not done, and the amount of work completed by the contractor will need to be ascertained by the architect and the quantity surveyor, translate it into the amount of money to be paid to the contractor. Now the work has already been done. The contractor should submit the interim claim plus the relevant details and particulars in order to apply for the payment. This is when the architect and quantity surveyor start ascertaining the amount, and the quantity surveyor will need to provide payment valuations. Now, within 21 days, the architect will need to issue interim certificate to the employer, CC to the contractor, and then the employer will need to pay to the contractor within the period of honoring certificate, which is typically 21 days. In the case that the contractor do not submit the interim claim, it is deemed that the contractor to waive his contractual entitlement. The architect may or may not issue an interim certificate. If the interim certificate is issued, within 21 days, the employer shall pay the contractor. If the interim certificate is not issued, no payment shall be given to the contractor. As a result, the contractor will have to bear all the costs related to the work done, and he cannot blame the architect of not issuing the interim certificate, since he himself not submitting the payment application. Now let us proceed with the amount due in architect certificate. You know that this amount is very important. It indicates to the employer regarding the total amount to be paid to the contractor. Now, the amount stated in the interim certificate shall be equals to the work properly executed by the contractor plus the percentage of value of materials and goods, which is up to the date of the contractor's payment applications, minus the amount retained by the employer, and also minus the amount previously certified. You know that the payment applications is done at the interim claim interval, which is typically bi-monthly. That means you're going to expect one interim certificate each month. Upon receiving the interim certificate, the employer will need to pay to the contractor. For the next interim certificate, there will be a certain amount that has already been previously certified and paid to the contractor. This shall not be paid twice. You see the quantification method here is quantifying the total amount of work that has been executed, and the amount to be paid to the contractor will have to minus those that has already been certified and paid to the contractor. The balance shall be the new payment entitled to the contractor. And regarding the work properly executed, this is inclusive of the work done by the contractor as well as the nominated subcontractor. As the contractual relationship is between the employer and the contractor, it is only when the contractor receives the payment, the contractor pays the nominated subcontractor for his portions of work. Same goes to the materials and goods here. The cost of the materials and goods shall also be paid to the contractor, and then the portions to be given to the nominated supplier shall be paid by the contractor to the nominated supplier. Regarding the materials and goods here, the materials and goods must be for incorporations into the permanent works and has been delivered to and properly stored at the site, and be protected against loss, damage or deteriorations, and be in accordance with the contract, reasonably, properly, and not prematurely brought to the site. That means when we talk about the materials and goods, it shall either be incorporated within the permanent works or delivered and properly stored at the site. It is stated that it is not prematurely brought to the site. This means that the contractor will have to schedule the delivery properly, not too beyond reasonably too early to bring the materials and goods to the site, which is yet to be used, and impose the risk of storage, losses or damage. There is an amount to be retained by the employer. This is referring to the retention fund, which is also clearly stated in the appendix, and normally in the range of 5% of the value of the work executed and the materials on site. The purpose of the retention fund here is to serve as a safeguard for any defective or non-conforming work by the contractor. In the case of this happen, the cost for the rectifications or replacement may be financed by this retention fund. Once the entire project completed, then the retention fund may be released and returned fully to the contractor. Next, we talk about the errors in the payment certificate. The architect cannot revise any payment certificate issued unless for clerical, computations or typographical errors, or the errors of similar nature. This is referring to the typing errors or some calculations errors. The main thing within the payment certificate, which has already been issued, cannot be revised, and the architect may make corrections by a later certificate. That means the corrections will be done in the following interim certificate.